Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday, man, going into week 9 of college football season, broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota Studios in Wynne, Arkansas. They are open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m., 6 p.m. Don't forget the service department is open on Saturdays, 7 a.m., 12:30 p.m. 25 service bays. Austin Futrell and the guys will get you in and out of here in a hurry. 45-minute drive from Memphis. Remember, they deliver anywhere. Fords, Toyotas, brand new, also over 700 used cars, trucks, and SUVs. Check them out on the web, redriverfordtoyota.com. Proud to be associated with them. Great sponsors. Also, Gateway Tire and Service Centers. We go the distance for our customers and the communities where we do business. Reforest, Mississippi, and support the Boy Scouts of America. Teach them about hunting and fishing and going out and survival skills, being a man. Man will make it. Boy Scouts, I loved it. I was in there 4.5 years. I think we drove our Scoutmaster to a breakdown, but we learned a lot about camping and fending for ourselves. That was a great time. Gordon Ford is with us, the fireman from Memphis. He's on fire watch with those binoculars, scanning the horizon for some smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Which coaches are walking the green mile? Who ordered 20-piece bucket of fried chicken and a 2-gallon drum, jug or drum of ice cream? That's usually the death row meal. It's pretty
No,
grim.
it's sending the moving van like they used to do.
Yeah.
Johnny Majors and
Yeah,
Bill Battle.
and Bill Battle. Yeah, we do it. But you always tell that Green Mile meal, and like the most cholesterol-laden food you can put in your body. Like it matters. All right, Jimmy Hodge is with us up in Knoxville, and we got a lot to talk about today. We are here every Monday through Saturday. Remember that for StadyTheFan.com, the podcast park in Atlanta, Kicks 96.3, Alexander City, Lake Martin, 750 miles of beautiful shoreline down there in one of the cleanest lakes in America, coming up on their 100th anniversary. That's really cool. And also www.sidelines.live, where you're hearing us live right now. Proud to be here talking college football in the greatest country in the world. Gordon, the crime occurred shortly after 2:30 p.m. Central this past Saturday in Baton Rouge. I felt like LSU would win the way they'd been playing, and I felt like after watching Auburn and Ole Miss play, Auburn's doesn't have a great team this year, but they scored 34 points on Ole Miss, and I was like, LSU is a better team than Auburn. They beat Auburn on the road. And by the way, a little bit of trivia here. Whoever's sniffling, I don't know who that is. Maybe someone's crying about the loss. But think about this. This is the first time any LSU coach has ever gone on the road and won at Auburn and at Florida in the same year. It's a big deal for Brian Kelly and LSU. They got a pretty good team. But I thought LSU would win that game. From some things I saw Auburn exposed with Ole Miss, and Ole Miss's schedule, Gordon, is back end loaded. They're 7-1. Okay, they got 4 games left, but they got to play Alabama, Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. What are you concerned about after leaving that 45-20 or whatever loss Saturday in Baton Rouge?
I'm concerned about them defensively. And I think that they're in the 3-4, which they basically probably need to, get some more people up front because they're most talented on the defensive line. I'm also concerned that the offensive line did not block, and it was supposed to. They don't pass block; they run block.
Yeah,
but their pass blocking is not very good. And you ran Judkins too much, and the bottom line is that Zach Evans was not there, and he sat out with a knee injury. Ulysses Bentley was a guy that they counted on, and he was hurt. I think he had a broken hand or something, or he was injured, and they played him about one play, and they only used one running back, which was Judkins. And to be honest with you, I think I'm worried about their offensive line, and I'm worried about their defense overall because they're giving up too many yards. People are running on them at will, even Vanderbilt. So that's where I would be concerned.
Yeah, Ole Miss has given up 79 points in these last two games against Auburn and against LSU. That's not good at all. Another thing is, Ole Miss had some injuries against LSU, but they also played a Kentucky team that was without a lot of this. I don't know what that background noise is, but whatever that
not
is.
Me, Rob.
Yeah. I don't know what that is in the background, but anyway, my concern is watching Ole Miss play, Gordon. And we talk with Yancey Porter a lot, and y'all both cover Ole Miss and know the program inside out. I'm looking there at what you have about a dozen defensive linemen that play a lot in every game. I could not believe, though, the way they just were pushed aside Saturday.
James Daniels all day to throw. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, not even NFL teams with the lines. I mean, he had all day. It's because they're not rushing enough players.
Yeah. Well, they're not rushing enough players, and I just think here, they had 300-yard rushers against Auburn. Auburn gave up 450 yards. Again, Auburn also ran for over 300 yards in that game and was down 21-0, and all of a sudden they came roaring back. And I don't know, to me, you look at how you play. You should, if you're going to be a dominant team, you want to make the college football playoff, you've got to dominate the teams that you're playing. Alabama, they came out, they did what they're supposed to do after a loss. They dominated Mississippi State, and Mississippi State scored their first touchdown in Tuscaloosa since 2014. And ironically, that was the first year, obviously, of the college football playoff, and State was for 4 or 5 weeks ranked, I think, the number one team in college football in those playoff rankings. So that was that game. I look at Ole Miss's schedule, Gordon. The scheduling across the board in the SEC this year was terrible. I've never seen so many schedule, 5 games in a row at home for Auburn. Ole Miss's back end loaded schedule, Arkansas's schedule, which is it's the toughest in the country. And you just look at the way the schedules are made. Listen, if you're struggling, you're going to get a bad schedule. And then you start getting thrown into the 11 a.m. timeout game. Not only is that bad for the players, but it's just worse for the fans to try to get there at 11 o'clock. But I'm anxious to see how Ole Miss recovers. They go to A&M this week, Gordon. You talk about – now, nobody's going to let $85 million walk out of the building. They can't do that. A&M, Jimbo Fisher, but he's done a horrible job as head coach, in my opinion. I mean, what's the gain of Jimbo being there versus had they kept Kevin Sumlin? Look at the wins and losses. I think Sumlin's record at this point was better. He also had wins on the road and at home against more top 10 and more top 25 teams.
They haven't fallen below 500 since Sherman was there. And at this time, I mean, I think Sherman was like 7-5 his last year. But you look at A&M, and you're right, $85 million. And I was reading today several articles, and a lot of people think that Jimbo will not be fired because nobody's going to come up with $85 million.
No.
Even though in a normal situation he would be fired, but he is going to do a major shakeup of his offensive staff. And, I don't know what he's looking at defensively, but, they're down to their third-team quarterback, 5-star redshirt, Connor Weigelman.
Yeah.
And, they say he played pretty good. I did not see the end of the game, but I watched him, and he does have a quick release and all that. And, Ole Miss will be desperate. They will be desperate. I mean, he's catching it. And I want to say that I read something that someone was talking to him. They said, well, just pay me my $85 million or something like that. I mean, of course, I'd like to get fired and get paid $85 million. I mean, that's lottery money there.
So that's a lot of nerve on Jimbo's part. Yeah. I mean, Gordon, I'm with you. And Connor Weigelman, he came in 5-star. He's a freshman quarterback. Now, good luck on that one. I tell you what he's reminding me of. He's an overpaid version of Gus Malzahn. Doesn't want to relinquish control of doesn't. I don't know what that noise is.
They only paid Gus
yeah.
$23 million to get rid of him.
Yeah.
You're talking $85 million, man.
Yeah, and so you're exactly so he's an overpaid version,
way overpaid
of Gus Malzahn. He doesn't want to relinquish control of the offense, and then what happens is they'll go hire an offensive coordinator, and that just gives them somebody to throw overboard as a scapegoat when things don't go right. Gordon, you know that.
Look at him, Rob. He's recruited the number one recruiting class in the country. He's in the top 5 every year. And I'm like, slim pickings and blazing saddles. What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Because something ain't right. And, I mean, they have the players, the facilities, the coaches, to pay for coaches. Something ain't right there.
Well, that's the problem, though. You know, Kevin Skarbinski, who's on our show with us on Saturdays, great journalist, longtime Birmingham News, now the Birmingham Lead and CoachSafely.org, made a comment a couple of weeks ago. He goes, look, don't be a snowplow parent. Don't just get out there and move all the obstacles out of your kids' ways. Well, I think you can do that at a place like A&M. It's too nice. I've said this for years. Oregon, it's too nice. You get these guys soft. I mean, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to make any effort. They're 18 and 19, 20-year-old kids, whatever. You've got to make them hungry. And we're investing all this money in these mega football-only facilities and all. I mean, how much is enough? I mean, I think
you
that
realize if they paid Jimbo Fisher off, that's more than the United States paid Franz for the Louisiana purchase. Far more. That's pretty bizarre.
Gordon, you being the banker, the nephew of Milburn Drysdale of Commerce Bank of Beverly Hills.
I'm shocked that anyone would sign someone this type of contract.
I'm not.
I mean, the bottom line is, I mean, now Mel Tucker's in there.
There you go. Exactly.
He's the Jimbo Fisher of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. There's one. Look. It's stupid. It's malpractice on the part of these ADs and coaches and university presidents. Here's what happens: you get a board of trustee member that makes a huge gift, and then he's got the president on speed dial. I mean, it's like a puppet on a string. And then he likes that coach. That coach gets close to him. He tells him something like, hey, man, you need to go hire you an offensive coordinator. So you got somebody, that you can blame. Again, I said, when things fall apart. Let's see if Jimbo goes and does that. And I wouldn't want to be that guy. I mean, but that's one of the biggest. They're 3-4, man. They're 3-4. Texas A&M is. They play Ole Miss. Ole Miss, listen, this is one of those games coming off a loss. I don't know how Zach Evans will be back or not, but this is.
No, he'll be back for that because he's from Texas.
Yeah, he's from Houston.
He played at TCU, so he'll definitely play in that game.
Yeah,
I can tell you right now.
I would have thought. Could he have played against LSU?
No, he was hurt. Yeah, well, he could have. They had him over there, but he wasn't ready to play. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, boy,
he was dressed out.
Yeah, that 1-2 punch, Quinshon Judkins and Zach Evans is just it's one of the best 1-2 punches I've seen. But now you start looking, LSU is Gordon. LSU's playing a lot better football. Another program,
much better.
Yeah, and Jimmy, I don't know if Jimmy's there or not. He was in a wind tunnel or what. I couldn't hear him a minute ago, but bring him on when we can. We'll try it again. But Gordon, I'm looking around the SEC. I'm looking at the ACC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, Big 12. Texas lost another gut-wrenching. I mean, they can't. It's just, it's like they just try to outscore each other. Obviously, you got to score more, but nobody has. They're not playing defense. It's exciting football, but I mean, Texas is now 5-3. Oklahoma State got them, over the weekend, 41-34. Look around you. Do you see a dominant team in college football this year? One that's just
no.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I see Georgia is it. I mean, anyone who beat Oregon like that, And Oregon is like Brenda Lee and Radar Love. They are coming on strong, buddy. They are playing extremely well.
Yeah.
I mean, to beat UCLA, and I think UCLA was a very good team. But then again, you got to look at the Pac-10. I mean, Utah comes to Florida and gets beat.
Yeah.
And that's one of their better teams. And Florida's one of the worst teams right now in the SEC. You have to wonder about the caliber of football out there right now. But I will say this, Oregon is for real as of right now.
You think so?
They might have got beat early by Georgia, and that was the coach's first game and all that kind of thing. But I think Georgia is the most dominant team in college football. I watched Clemson against Syracuse, was unimpressed with them.
Yeah.
And, haven't seen Michigan enough to tell you, but, they seem to be very good. But off the top of my head, but I don't know about Clemson. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and we're going to talk in the second hour with Tommy Kane over in Atlanta on the ACC. But I'm looking around here and saying the same thing. And I was with one of my friends who's a big lifelong Georgia fan, and he was going, we're not that good. And I said, I know how he feels. I can remember Auburn being in that category when they're in the top 1 or 2 or 3, and you're going, I don't know how good we are. And then you play the wrong team and they beat you 48-7. And that's the world we live in. Gordon, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back, get more into it. And you look at the SEC East, SEC West, and you say, well, Georgia right now is the dominant team in the SEC. Well, they hadn't played Alabama yet. They hadn't played LSU. They hadn't played Ole Miss. How good? We're about to find out this Saturday, world's largest outdoor cocktail party. We're going to talk about it right after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Okay, we're going to talk more. We're covering a lot of ground in the SEC. And again, I'll just say this about Oregon. They're playing, since they played Georgia, and I believe teams do get better throughout the season, but they're playing a Pac-12 schedule. And they're winning. They won handily over UCLA. It was undefeated, top 10 matchup of 2 Pac-12 teams, which we hadn't seen in a long time. But Gordon, I know during the break you wanted to say something else about Texas A&M.
Yeah, but before you get back to that, you talking about Oregon, and I'm just going to throw this out real quick. One year that Arkansas went out and played USC and got beat like 70-3.
Yes,
and that team got far better that year and ended up playing for the SEC championship. But anyway, I'm getting back to A&M. Where are their wins going to be? Ole Miss, I think that's a toss-up. I think Ole Miss could beat them. They play at Florida. They got Florida.
Florida's in College Station.
They beat Florida.
Yeah.
They play Auburn on the road. Then they play UMass. We know, we think that's a win. We thought they'd beat Appalachian State too. And then they got LSU. Where do you think their wins come from, Rob?
I think they'll win probably a couple of these games. Very likely they'll win at Auburn. They'll win at home against UMass. Ole Miss,
I think they beat Florida.
Yeah. They got Florida coming at home. Well, they should, but
do they beat Ole Miss? We don't know what Ole Miss is going to be like.
Yeah. And that's the way they are. They're all over the place. I thought they'd win 7 or 8 games this year. I did not buy into that hype. So, with them, if they're starting a third team quarterback going on the road, Auburn might beat them. I mean, Auburn's players have not quit. It's just the offensive play calling and the coaching is dismal. But those Auburn players, they're not going to quit. They like Browne Harsin, but they also need the players. They just don't have the depth. And, the talent gulf, our friend Chuck Oliver, Southern Sports Today, told us on the show before the season, he said, I haven't seen the talent gulf so wide, so deep between Auburn and Alabama. You have to go back 40 years when Pat Dye first got there. A&M, they got a lot of talent. They had 54 players on the field when they lost at home to Appalachian State. That's why preseason rankings are a joke. Number 6 team in the country, they're not even close to that. But they had 54 players on their roster who were 4 or 5 star rated players. Appalachian State had 1.
And they paid what, $30 million in NIL money?
This is a misnomer. I've checked on some stuff, and I was told, and I'm going to verify, but I was told that $25 million is over 5 years. That's a spread out. I don't think so. By the way, I think these NIL deals, we're already seeing the damaging effect that they are having. They are damaging just a lot of teams, the locker rooms. You can't explain. I mean, I think that's the problem at Texas A&M, Gordon. Above all else, I think you got some problems on that team. You don't play this poorly unless you've got some
point, Rob. Very good point.
Dissension.
You must have some sort of dissension.
Yeah, and guys going, he's getting this much, and I'm only getting this much, and he's getting this much. Hey, man, that's why we talked about it. Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin are saying, let's have an amount that's sort of across the board in all 50 states. I'm not a socialist by any means. I'm a right-wing capitalist, always will be. I believe in the free markets. But put that money aside. You've got guys that they don't care. You got a 19-year-old Quinn Ewers, quarterback at Texas, driving to practice in an Aston Martin. I mean, he's laughing. Of course, Jimbo Fisher, he can't say anything to these kids. He's got an $85 million buyout. But I think NIL across the country, coaches are not going to say it, but I think they hate it.
Because I want to ask him, would they pay the $85 million to get rid of him?
Yeah, we had that discussion with Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, Friday. Who's out in Dallas and knows the Texas programs inside out. Nobody's going to let $85 million walk out the door. It doesn't matter what the price of oil is. I just think maybe they would work out something with Jimbo Fisher. But I'm just saying, I think there's dissension in locker rooms across the country because of NIL. And I'm not going to name the programs, but I know of some where coaches have said, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I got guys coming to my office instead of talking about how to get better. Somebody's got the sniffles again. I don't know what that is, but anyway, they're coming to my door and they're saying, "Hey, this school or that school is offering me more." And you're going, "Son, you're a freshman. You haven't even played yet." I mean, it's driving the coaches crazy. I'm telling you, you start putting the cart before the horse, you're going to regret it. Jimmy, I don't know if you can hear us or not, but jump into this conversation with Gordon. I don't think there's any way anybody is stupid enough to spend $85 million on a buyout if they were to want to move on from Jimbo Fisher. Do you?
If you have individual well-heeled alumni that want to do it, you certainly can. The school's not going to out of their funds. And that's how a lot of these buyouts always work, is that you have individual contributors who donate that money to negotiate the buyout. So, I think it's possible. Would it be bizarre? Yes. But at the same time, A&M is committed to this guy for 9 more years, and all that money's guaranteed. So you would think if you just use normal physical responsibility, you couldn't even think about making a move for 5 or 6 years. And even if you waited that long, the buyout would still be 30 million. I mean, that's kind of a dilemma that Auburn power brokers in the past would be envious of, you know?
Yes.
I mean, they're just in a bad, bad way. And Jimbo, just offensively, they just don't have a clue. And he's not going to give up the play calling. He's not going to give up control of the offense. He's shown at A&M that he's not able to develop quarterbacks. And that's the most important position in today's college game. And if you can't do that, you're in a really bad way. And looking at the remainder of the schedule, you know, the only game you could probably put a check mark next to it, but you know, nothing's ever a sure thing as UMass. I mean, right now you've got a lot of players who are confused. They don't understand why they're not being successful. And you got a lot of guys with sweet NIL deals that are maybe looking at things differently than the rest of the roster. So you've got a real mess right now. And there's no easy solution. Let's just say theoretically, if some big fat cat boosters did come up with the money to buy Jimbo out, now you've got to commit to a huge 5 or 6 year contract with a new coach if you're going to get an elite coach. And so you don't want to keep doing that over and over again.
No. All right. Comments from our good friend Maury Gaston down in Birmingham. If adding comments about Texas A&M, add this, and I quote, if I were president at Texas A&M, I would have Jimbo Fisher come into my office on Monday in a very public manner, cameras and film crew outside the building. Too often we don't put any performance pressure on these guys before we load their Brinks truck. They still have pride, even if not motivation. Shame them into performance if necessary. And you can quote me, as we just did, Maury Gaston. And I'm going to tell you something. In the real world, you can't get paid like this. I mean, you're an absolute idiot. I've talked to so many successful people who have a lot of money, and they just roll their eyes at the way coaches are paid. And I say, you know, start putting these guys on a base salary and then give them incentives. I mean, they have incentives in their contract, but if you have an $85 million buyout, if they just were to fire you without cause, I mean, that's malpractice. And I tell you what, I'd be really mad if I was a fan of Texas A&M and I don't know, whatever they call them, the, you know, big Aggies or whatever their big fundraising arm is. And they're asking me to give money that I could be giving to my church or to wounded veterans in this country, or to people who got hit by the hurricane down in Florida and the Carolinas. And they asked me to, and I keep giving them money. And I see them spending that money to buy out coaches who didn't get the job done. I'd quit giving. There are 3 things you've got to have: responsibility, authority, and accountability to conduct a mission in life, your business or whatever it is. This is absolute stupidity. Gordon, we're about out of time with you, but you are the fireman. You're up there in the fire tower, keeping a watchful eye on the horizon, north, south, east, and west, and high above. Last question I'm going to ask you before we go. We'll talk to you later in the week. Does Jimbo, I'm going to say it, Sam Kennison, say it! Does he walk the green mile if they lose the rest?
No, he does not.
Even if they lose the rest of their games?
The green mile, the offensive coordinator. And actually, I remember watching him playing college for his dad at Kansas State.
Yeah.
So he's going to walk the green mile. And I think that's definitely going to happen. And I think that's what A&M's going to make him do.
Yeah, but
shake it up, because they ain't going to give him $85 million.
No, they're not. I know that nobody's that stupid. We've seen some stupid people, but I'm just saying, you know, firing a shot over the bow to colleges across the country. Don't keep asking your boosters to fork out money that they can spend on other things if you're going to keep flushing it down the toilet to buy out these awful coaches that you hire. These search committees oftentimes have hidden agendas. They have favors, you know, do me a solid. and they bring up these losers to the university, to the search committee, and these search firms, you better watch out for them. I'm not saying they're all bad, but man, they bomb out a lot. You know it when you see it. You know it when there's a great coach in your presence. You know, Auburn could have had Kirby Smart back in 2012, but they passed on him and took Mr. Rogers. How'd that work out? You know, Jimbo, here's the thing. He's just like Gus. He cannot put aside his ego and hire someone else to call the plays. And so who's going to suffer? A&M and their loyal fans, who they have among the most loyal fans, wouldn't y'all agree, of any school in America? It's unfortunate, Gordon. All right, give me a couple of coaches you think are walking the green mile that might not even make it through next weekend.
The only guy off the top of my head is the guy at USF, and he's definitely walking the green mile. And I mentioned to you before, David Shaw at Stanford. He's not winning anything for whatever reason. They won't fire him. That's the only people just right now I can tell you that I think's in trouble.
Did you see the crowd or lack thereof at the Stanford game? I mean, what are people
I did not.
Jimmy, I don't know if you saw. I don't think there were 5,000 people in the stadium at Stanford.
They had to come from behind to beat an Arizona State team who's looking for a coach, and they're just in total disarray. So, Stanford the last 2 or 3 years has taken some serious steps backwards, and for whatever reason, it appears that Shaw seems to be safe. But I got to think from this point on, they got to be watching the progress of that program pretty carefully as far as the board of trustees and the power brokers at Stanford go, because when you look at Oregon right now, the way they're playing, and you look at the way your program is playing, that's a big area of concern. But I will say, though, that Oregon and Utah at this point, 2 months later, are totally different teams than they were on the opening weekend. And hey, you got to give a guy his due. But Bo Nix became only, I think, this maybe fourth quarterback in Stanford in Oregon history to have multiple games of 5 touchdown passes in the same season. And
Jeremiah McCauley and Herbert.
Yeah, and Kenny Dillingham, who was at Memphis, then went to Auburn for a year in 2019. Bo's freshman year, had a big influence on him then went to Florida State, is with him again at Oregon. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, Frank Duffy is in here with us right now from Baton Rouge. And,
all right, Rob,
Gordon, I was going to say,
I'll be able to
Gordon, if you can hang with us, if you can, we're going to get into this round table. Frank was at the LSU Ole Miss game, and
actually, I've got to roll. But,
okay.
I will definitely be on there Friday.
Okay, looking forward to it. Thanks so much. The Gordon Ford, the fireman, on Sidelines with us. All right, bye-bye. Frank, interesting talking with Gordon about,
good morning.
Yeah, man, the Ole Miss game. And he mentioned about Ole Miss had some injured players, and I said, and they also beat Kentucky when Kentucky had injured players. That's just part of it. You got to go with what you go with. But I really felt all the trend was toward LSU getting the win, and you saw this one coming. You were Jim Cantori there. If you were Ole Miss, you were there, Jim Cantori, because this was a dominant performance. And Brian Kelly, man, and hats off, kudos to Jimmy. I've always thought Brian Kelly could coach.
All three of us did.
Yeah, and I thought he had
4 if you include Doug Dean. We were all on that bandwagon.
And I thought he had peaked out several years ago at Notre Dame. God love him, but he wasn't going to be able to get these kind of players. But also I want to say this too. We say this a lot down here in the SEC, kiddingly. They don't have the standards. These schools in the SEC are damn good schools. At LSU is a damn good school. So is Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss, Memphis. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. But they've got some standards that make it almost impossible for him. But this guy looks so comfortable on the sidelines, and the progress of Jaden Daniels, man,
crazy.
I'm telling you, it's amazing. But anyway, and I'm still Gordon. Frank, everybody was talking over at the Cherry Farm this weekend going, Frank Duffy's got to come to the Cherry Farm and make us some of that seafood gumbo. Because Tanner Smith was talking about it going, man, as a fellow Cajun from Lake Charles.
Here's the crazy thing.
Envious.
Here's the crazy thing. That was the best seafood gumbo I've ever made. And I made it while on the show with you and Jimmy, and we were talking to everybody. It was the craziest thing. I mean, I thought I cut a finger off at one point. We were talking about, well, the Alabama-Mississippi State game coming up, and I had to look down and count how many digits I still had on my finger. I'm just chopping away. But I'll tell you what, it came out great. It was awesome. It was an awesome day here at LSU. It was perfect.
Hold those thoughts, because we'll take a break. I want you to pick back up on that right when we come back. Frank Duffy still in Baton Rouge aboard Bengal 1. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. Rob Browne win after quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hey, Rob Browne with you here on this Monday Sidelines. Hello, Wesley Duncan listening down there on the old transistor radio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Rob Anderson, all our buddies.
Yep, Shoney's up early in the morning. There's two people that get up real early east of the Chattahoochee. That is Shoney, Rob Anderson in Valdosta, and Lauren Smith. I mean, I get 4:30 my time. Duck season starts in about a month. I'll be used to that. I'll get a text from Gordon or from Lauren Smith and Shoney early in the morning. That chain with Sam Haney and Pat Cornelius and all those guys that listen, we love you over in Atlanta and Huntsville, Ray Mooring. Let's just say we're blessed to have listeners, and they want to hear us talk about sports and good food and all like that. And I got to tell you, Jimmy and I and Frank, we were, and Doug was on this thing the other day. That was a lot of fun looking at this game. And I hope you got a chance to meet with Yancey down there. But I just think that's the grind of the SEC, Frank. You were making some points. So pick up on that and run with that ball.
Well, first of all, I did want to say hi to Gordon. I'm sorry he had to get off so quickly. I wanted to appreciate him having me on the Rebel Yell hotline last Monday. I really would love for him to invite me to be on the Rebel Yell hotline tonight. That'd be really a lot of fun.
What about that?
But no, him and Yancey are great people. And Yancey actually called me about an hour and a half before kickoff, and he goes, Frank, he goes, man, he goes, I watched you make that damn gumbo. He goes, I'm dying for some. He goes, I can't get an Uber to come get us at the hotel. I was like, Yancey, brother, y'all better start walking, because it's going to be a tough gig to get here. It's already just packed. I said, look, if you can make it, come on after the game. Come on by, the gumbo will hold. But it was kind of funny, Rob, you were talking about early risers. I tweeted out, to you guys, you and Doug and Jimmy and all the guys, an empty gumbo pot at 4:00 in the morning. And Doug Dean immediately texted me back. He goes, you think you up early? I've been up for a half an hour. I'm getting ready to go hunting. So, yeah, we got an early crew. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about this game. I said it on the Rebel Yell hotline. I said it on our Friday show with Dan Bornay. And if you haven't gone out and gotten that on the library of Rob and Jimmy's shows, you've got to go listen to the Dan Bornay interview. It was fantastic on Friday. But I said it on Saturday as well. The game was going to come down to two pivotal points. LSU had to stop the Ole Miss run, which they did cold. I think I looked up somewhere in the late third quarter, and it was maybe like 65 yards rushing at that point. And I said we had to establish the run, and we did that. And it really took form in that second half, and especially in the fourth quarter. We were running at will. We were blowing Ole Miss defensive line off the line of scrimmage. Jaden Daniels had a day. Son, come get you some. Between the last 2 weeks, he's been putting up Joe Burrow type numbers. Totally different, player, but the results have been just incredible. We were not expecting this. It really came down to that line of scrimmage, as many SEC games do. But when you're coming on the road like Ole Miss was, and look, Ole Miss, we had said it early in the week, it's kind of like a chess move. You were trading a bishop for a rook. It was even Steven. Yes, you beat Kentucky at home, but Kentucky had some issues. But now you're coming on the road to LSU. Granted, it was a day game, and I'm kind of hoping that CBS picks up, which I'm sure they will, Georgia and Tennessee for 2 weeks from now as the afternoon game, so we can have Jimmy and his crimson-colored pals coming in at night. But it was a day game, but Ole Miss had to come in, and look, they got the jump. They got the Auburn start. They were up 14 on us right before we even knew what happened. But this LSU team, you've got to give it to them. They are resilient. They're as tough as a $3 steak. They didn't fold. They didn't buckle. I watched the sidelines. I was on that LSU side. I was watching them closely. There was no panic. There was no angst. They just came back out and ran their offense. And all of a sudden, you started to see them gaining momentum. Our offense is a very momentum-driven offense. It's a feel offense. We started getting some good openings, some gashes for Jaden Daniels to run, which then sets those linebackers back. And he did a great job of placing the ball. In fact, I ran into Keyshawn Boutte leaving Tiger Stadium after all the madness. I wish they wouldn't have rushed the field, but they did. I was kind of saving, hopefully we could save that $250,000 up for 2 weeks from now. That might cost us $500,000 if we could pull that one off. But I was leaving Tiger Stadium and I ran into Keyshawn and I said, man, you did a great job today, young man. I said, your attitude was fantastic. I said, and you were really tough coming across the middle on that one catch that was really pivotal, that first down catch, did about 12, 13 yards. He said, thank you, sir. And I was like, I like that. That was fantastic. So you had the offense was playing well, but our defense, and I knew we were going to do that. If we could stop that run and make Jackson Dart beat us, I knew eventually our defensive line, because, man, we're 7 deep on that line. You got to give it to us. As thin as we were in that bowl game, we still have talent on that defensive line, and we were cycling guys in. But Ali Gay, B.J. Ojolari, they put pressure on him, and eventually that offensive line from Ole Miss cracked, and we were getting the pressure. And I'm telling you what, poor Dart back there, that last quarter and a half, he was running for his life. And that's old-time LSU championship football, and it came to bear. But it was stopping the run and establishing the run, which I knew was going to be the important things, and I said it all week, and it came to pass.
Well, LSU took advantage of Ole Miss's not adjusting throughout the game. I think it was 14-3 or 17-3. A lot
Kelly
of
outcoached him. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and as the game goes on, you'll see a lot of these teams, the first 16 plays are scripted. They can jump out to a 14-0 lead.
Which they
Other
did,
teams,
and they look
coordinators adjust, and they don't adjust. They think, well, our way works the entire way. That's the genius of Brian Kelly. Again, that's why he's separated by only 4 games from Nick Saban as he's the second winningest coach in America. This guy is, for people to say, were after the Florida State loss, he's never going to make it. He's lost this team. I mean, these people are the kind of people that if they were in sales would quit after the first guy hung up on them on a cold call on a sales call. I mean, that's where we have got so many people out here. They're just soft and they don't have any experience themselves in business. I don't think they've ever worked. Brian Kelly, you better be concerned if you're the SEC that LSU has Brian Kelly. And I look what he has done to turn them around from where people thought, they lost by 1 point to Florida State, people. Okay. And then Tennessee beat them soundly. But you know what? They're coaching their way out of that hole. Give them credit. I mean, Jimmy
eight games in, we're very pleased where we are. And you're right. Had we, I think Kelly, and it's kind of funny. I can't speak for the man, but I got a feeling the Kelly that I saw on the sideline in Saturday in Tiger Stadium, might have gone for 2 against Florida State in that opening game. Everybody's having a learning curve here, and like I said before, it's having the adults coming into the room, which we haven't had. Even during the national championship year, you didn't have that. That professional CEO type feel, that type of approach. And look, there have been a few Coach O sycophants who were all upset that they got rid of O. And I tell you don't hear them anymore. That's kind of been drowned out, thankfully. No, this coach he's serious. He's done a great job at recruiting. He's done a great job at getting transfer talent in, because the cupboards were bare when he came in here. You saw what happened in that bowl game against Kansas State. That might, by the way, be his biggest accomplishment, as opposed to what he's done in game success, is getting talent coming on here in such a quick time period. So no, we're very pleased, Rob and Jimmy. I told people, and they might have thought I was crazy. And look, it might not turn out this way, because I'm about to do might be some heresy, but I'm telling you, it felt a lot like 2000 to me. The offseason leading up to this, it felt a lot like when Saban first came in and said, "There's a new sheriff in town, and if you want to do things the right way to have success, this is the way that we're going to do it." And that's kind of what I saw with Brian Kelly early on.
Well, Jimmy, you'd have to agree with what Frank's saying, but throw in Josh Heupel, what he did at Tennessee with 44 guys going into the portal and other reasons gone. 2 years later, the Volunteers sit at number 3 in the country, with Kentucky coming to town Saturday. That's 2 great coaching jobs by Brian Kelly and Josh Heupel to save what could have been a 5-alarm fire from getting out of control.
Yeah, well, again, LSU, the last 2 weeks, I mean, they've just been a completely different team, and it really starts at quarterback, because we all know that's the most important position in modern day college football. And as I mentioned earlier, during the game, McElroy had mentioned he talked to Brian Kelly, and the offensive coordinator that came from Cincinnati. I would say his name, but I would botch it. And they emphasized, they emphasized to Daniels that coming into that Florida game, they didn't want him to have faster feet. They wanted him making faster decisions.
Yep.
And then the feet would follow after that, because that's already there. And in that game, you saw him completing multiple passes in which he went to his third and fourth progression. And he looked comfortable doing it. But of course, at the same time, your offensive line has to give you time to be able to do that. And they certainly did. And you could just tell from that performance that this is going to be a different LSU team going forward. And then Saturday against Ole Miss, it was really the same thing. But I think what Kelly does a really good job of is convincing his team that this is a 60-minute game. That's a long time. And from the point they were down 17-3 to LSU to Ole Miss, scored Ole Miss 40-3 from that point on. I mean, in the last 2.5 quarters of the game, LSU just manhandled Ole Miss at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And this is a team right now that I think anybody in the conference, Georgia included, should be concerned about playing right now, because, of course, Alabama's not going to get an 11 a.m. kickoff at Tiger Stadium or a 2:30. It's going to be at night with the full moon 2 days before Halloween. It's going to be a tough task. And if Alabama brings that offense they did Saturday night, it's going to be a long night in Red Stick. But I think both teams are really going to be prepared with the open week, and both, it's going to be similar, I think, to Alabama, Tennessee, where both teams are going to be prepared to play at a very high level.
Yeah. Let me say that, Jimmy, great stuff. This is something Audrey, my wife and producer, gave me. Bruce Lee, we all remember Bruce Lee, said, quote, "Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Change the way you speak about yourself and you can change your life. What you're not changing, you're also choosing." And I think what the takeaway from that is how quickly a new coach and staff and culture can fix a mess. LSU had 38 scholarship players that were willing to put on the purple and gold and represent that great university in the bowl game. To hell with the rest of those guys. I wouldn't let them back on campus. The opt-outs, the quitters, the whiners. I don't want anything to do with them. Commit or otherwise get out of the way because you're just taking up space.
Rob, I was checking to see how much eligibility I had left. I thought I was going to have to head on out west to go play. No, you're exactly right. And that's exactly what Kelly did when he came in. You know, he said, look, we're not going to live up to the same story that we've been hearing. And look, it was really it was sad and ridiculous that it came to that. I mean, we had I'll argue anybody that wants to argue. We had the greatest college football season of all time just 3 seasons ago. And I'm telling you, as soon as the confetti left the ground, Coach O took his eyes off the prize. He decided to, enjoy the laurels of that gig. And I mean, the speed in which it disintegrated was mind blowing. And so to have Kelly come in and go, look, we got talent. We might have only had half a squad of talent, playing in the bowl game. But we've got talent. I'm going to hit the transfer portal. He did a great job. I think it was only probably second to Saban on how well it was done in the transfer portal. I think Saban played it the best. But I think Kelly was, close up there on how much talent he got. And it wasn't high marquee talent. It was talent by need. And to cobble that together. And look, like Jimmy said early on, we're going to see what LSU does after that first game because – you don't know until you're in live fire. And we didn't have that tune-up game this year. We had to play Florida State in the Superdome, but you've seen it over the last several weeks. I really think they found themselves at Auburn. Yeah, we got slaughtered by Tennessee, but I think Tennessee, Jimmy said that was a football gods win, and it has been football gods wins for Tennessee, and it might be all the way for Tennessee. I mean, who knows, right? But I agree with that. But since Auburn, LSU's played a different brand of football. It's like they've literally started believing themselves. And like Jimmy said, Kelly preaches a 60-minute game, and you've seen it. You've seen it at Auburn. You've seen it at Florida. I mean, in Florida in the third quarter, I mean, we ran away from them. And if it wasn't for a holding call, it wasn't called on that Anthony Richardson 81-yard run and a botched punt. And by the way, we now have a punt returner. We're doing well on that. I mean, that would have been a blowout. But watching that Ole Miss come back this week, that was very impressive to do. And that home crowd was behind them, even though it was an afternoon. It was a night game. And you saw the result. And now, look, we always know the barometer for LSU football comes that first week in November. And Nick Saban's coming in, and we'll see what we got in 2 weeks. But a bye week and a little rest and a little regrouping couldn't have come at a better time. We got a puncher's chance when Saban comes in.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a quick break here. Tommy Kane is on with us from over in Atlanta, long time with the ACC Network, Fox Sports as his own production company. He's run down and rubbed the rock at Clemson running onto the field. I think he's been to Death Valley. Which Death Valley? We're going to talk about that with him, Frank. Hang on with us because he's an NC State alum, ACC guy. He's been all over the place covering. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Oh, the Wolfpack deal. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. Jimmy Hodge is with us up in Knoxville. We're here in Wynne, Arkansas, Red River Ford Toyota Studios. Hello to Shane Thurman listening, one of our listeners down in Niceville, Florida. Get some nice stuff from you. Thanks so much for listening. Collierville Red Dragon forever. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, Call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back here on this Monday, going into week 9 of college football season. And Frank Duffy, like I said, Tommy Kane has been to both Death Valleys. I know he's been I'm pretty sure he's been to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Talk about that atmosphere, Tommy. Frank was down there making his seafood gumbo. He's still there in the parking lot aboard the 40-footer Bingle 1 before he has to head up north of Atlanta where he lives. But
I'm thinking about putting squatters' rights for the next 2 weeks until Alabama comes. I'm just thinking about squatting.
Why not? Tommy, what's it like down there? And you being a guy from Wilmington, North Carolina, from the beach, went to NC State, pretty special place, isn't it?
LSU on game day, man. Woo! I tell you what, I think we talked about a couple weeks ago, guys. Like some of the tailgating I saw down there, I've never seen anywhere, and I've been to every school in the ACC and most all in the SEC. But I mean, when you're walking around and you see an actual alligator on a spit being cooked, you're like, man, you're in a different place.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what we love about it. And then, Frank, I know you've got to get off right here at 9, but 2 weeks from now, but you got games. Obviously, there's a lot of football to be played. Okay. November 5th. Think about this. You've got Tennessee and Georgia. I'm guessing CBS does a doubleheader and does the 2:30 in Athens, Tennessee at Georgia. And then Count Dracula is going to be the keeper of the clock. He's going to have a night game. 1, 2, 3. I think that's coming, Frank. But anyway, Frank, closing comments about your LSU Tigers. Squatters' rights. Let's see if you stay for 2 weeks. You're there. We're going to keep the clock going. But final thoughts on this LSU team and how not to get too excited. But don't say anything bad about yourself when you got a good team.
Hey, no, look, I'm very pleased at where we are at 6-2. Like I said, the barometer every year is when we play Alabama. Honestly, it's our grudge game. Everybody points to it. I heard some misguided children walking out after they were on the field at Death Valley 2 nights ago chanting, "We want Bama." I told them, y'all better slow your roll because they're coming whether you want them or not. And you might not want what we get. Because that defense that Bama has is a different animal than the one we saw in Florida and the one we saw in Mississippi at Ole Miss. But Will Anderson and that group, Teatoa, that they're going to have to basically keep their lanes, because if they don't keep their lanes, Jaden Daniels can prove to you he can rip off a 10 and 15-yard run very easily. So it's going to be another great night in Tiger Stadium. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to need all 12 days to rest up and recuperate from what I just experienced. We're heading back to Atlanta today. So I'll be looking forward to Jimmy, you and I having a nice little friendly rivalry over the next 12 days of broadcasting leading up to it.
Yeah, it will be fun. Frank, be careful. I'll talk to you later today. Thanks so much.
All right. See you guys. Go Tigers.
All right. Go Tigers. Tommy, man, ACC football action. Duke, man, they go down to Miami. Duke's 5-3 now, and they got a new coach. David Kuckel's not there anymore, but people just keep Miami. They're back. The U. It's like Texas. It's going to take a lot more than 1 year. And that Ruiz guy, the attorney, paying guys, in NIL money and all like that. I think we're already seeing A&M paid out supposedly more than anybody, and they're struggling. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like the teams where the guys love football and are hungry and just are having fun are getting the wins.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before, guys, but Duke, I mean, come on, give credit to Duke. I mean, they're a small private school in Durham, North Carolina, obviously known for their basketball around the world, but in Coach K, but you know, they just have good players. They have a good system. They run a nice system. They don't do anything too crazy. They've got a couple good running backs. I mean, I was looking at the stats earlier. They had 2 or 3 guys get over 60 yards, and had one guy, Leonard, had their quarterback had 3 touchdowns and 60 yards rushing. I mean, they just got a good balanced attack. And I think Miami, guys, has just lost their identity. You know, they had so much kind of hype coming in with the quarterback and saying that Van Dyke was going to be had such a great year last year and everything. But they just haven't found their identity. I think that's the best way to put it. And I got hats off to Duke. I mean, they're 5-3, 2-2 in the conference, and they're doing well. So there you go. You never know.
Yeah, and I looked too, and Clemson, they got the win over Syracuse. Syracuse,
what a game that was!
Yeah, and they had to work for that. That was not you know the narrative. A lot of people think, well, wait till Syracuse quote plays somebody. Well, I don't know how that game. It might have been a totally different outcome had it been up at the Carrier Dome. But again, I love seeing football played because in towns, campuses where you got good sports, especially college football. Well, I say basketball, baseball, anything. It is such a source of pride. But dadgum, I don't know how good Syracuse is. I don't know if Clemson will make the playoffs, but that was one of the best games we saw Saturday.
It really was. You know, Clemson, you know, it was a homecoming game, and I'm sure they were hyped up. I mean, Syracuse came in ranked 14th in the country, and you know, Clemson still got that perfect record going. And after the first half, I mean, it was 21-10, and Syracuse was up, and they were rolling. And I was like, man, Syracuse is a legit top 10 team. Really, I mean, I really thought so after that first half. And then, you know, hats off and credit to Clemson and Dabo for making a few adjustments there, and they shut them out in the second half. Syracuse didn't score a point in the second half, and Clemson turned it on in the fourth quarter, put up 17 points, and next thing you know, it's 27-21, and Syracuse had the ball at the end with pushing the ball on the field, trying to get that last score, and he threw a terrible pass, and it got picked off. But again, you know, and Dabo he pulled DJ. He pulled their starting quarterback of the number 5 team in the country to put in a freshman kid that was and Klubnik, I think is his name, and he didn't do. I mean, he didn't come in and like shock the world and throw for 300 yards or do anything crazy, but he ran the offense. He kept it conservative, and DJ just had one of those days. He threw the ball away a couple of times and had a fumble, and and immediately, Dabo got bombarded with the questions of like, what's going on? Is DJ a quarterback? And he came out and said 1,000% DJ is our quarterback. He was just having one of those days. He's our leader. He's our captain. And we just had to try to throw a spark in there. I mean, that's why Dabo is Dabo. He pulled the right lever and it worked, and they came out with the win, and they're still got a clean record. So, yeah,
great coaches know that every player is motivated by different things, and you pull a guy that's a starter out for a series or two, and that's what it takes. That because you know it because you're there at practice with them every day. Jimmy Hodge, this ACC race, and also you got Wake Forest. You've got I think, North Carolina's at 6-1. They're playing some good football. Again, I don't know if there's a dominant team in college football, but Jimmy, your takeaway from what you saw this past weekend over in the ACC?
Well, I don't know that these teams are playing great football. Their record indicates that they are, but Carolina could have easily lost 3 games anyway. Gave up 42 points in the fourth quarter at App State, So, I mean, I think the ACC still has a long way to go. Just watching Clemson on Saturday, that's nowhere close to the number 5 team in the country. I mean, they're not the same program they were 3 years ago. And, I think Klubnik is eventually going to be their quarterback. It's going to be, I think, eventually a Trevor Lawrence scenario, because with DJU, there's just something missing there. I know he's really worked hard to try to get better. He's lost a lot of weight and so forth, but there's just something with Clemson right now that they're winning, yeah, and that's all that counts. And if they go 12-0 and then win the ACC championship, they're going to be in the playoff. But I haven't seen anything from them so far that makes me think they are a legitimate national championship contender. But again, no, that's just the way the system works right now, and they very well could be in another 6 weeks. But I tell you what, Dave Clawson, the job he's done at Wake Forest, though, is just absolutely unbelievable. And the only difference in that Clemson game there was that Clemson had receivers that were 6'2", and Wake Forest had DBs that were 5'10", and they made some big catches on 50-50 balls. That was the difference in the game. And as Tommy mentioned, I mean, Mike Elko's done an unbelievable job at Duke. And don't you think that he's happy that he was able to land that first head coaching job and not be a part of that A&M mess, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where he wouldn't have any control of that. But what is impressive about what he's done and what smart defensive coordinators do that get head coaching jobs, they stay out of the offensive part of it and bring in the best possible coordinator they can on the offensive side of the ball and let them coach. And that's what Duke's done. And it's been really impressive to watch them so far this year.
Yeah, and I will say this about Clemson, though, Jimmy, too, is like, I agree with you. They're not a top. I really don't think they're obviously not nearly to the level they've been for the last 4 or 5 years, right? I mean, there's something missing there. But they do have a quarter or two or some moments or drives when you're like, wow, that looks like, I mean, there they go. That's Clemson.
Yeah.
I mean, they're cutting 2 people. They're running their plays are all crisp. They look like Clemson of old. But the consistency is, I think, what's missing. And I think that goes back to what we talked about with DJ. Here's something maybe just missing there with his consistency. I don't know if this is confidence or his understanding of the playbook or what it is, but there's just something that's there that you're like, you never know what you're going to get when they get the ball 1st and 10. You're like, okay, well, how's this series going to go? In the past with Trevor Lawrence, with Deshaun Watson, you were like, here they go. You just knew it was going down the field, right? DJ, that there's something missing there, and I agree with you. But to their credit, like you said, they're still undefeated, and they got all they got to do is put themselves in a position at the end of the year to be in the playoffs, and you never know what's going to happen. So,
well, you talk about DJ, something's missing. Is it the fact the offensive line the last few years has just they don't have the top elite players. They never really have, if you compare what Alabama's had in terms of first-round draft picks. But of course, Texas is another program, and again, you're seeing it more and more. Offensive linemen are so hard to find nowadays. I'm talking elite ones that can come in. It's always been hard to find one that can start as a freshman, but that might also be making it difficult. But I do agree. Clemson, they're 8-0. But look at the teams ahead of them. Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. Georgia's had a real close call with Kent State. Lucky to get the win on the road at Missouri. Georgia's got they got Florida Saturday. That game, I think Georgia's going to win. They're just better. Then they've got Tennessee coming in November 5th. That's going to be one. I think Tennessee has Kentucky. Georgia has Florida. They both better show up for those games, or they could lose them, because that one November 5th is big. But it's
huge. And you don't, like you said, I mean, the Kentuckies, I mean, that's right now, that's Kentucky's Super Bowl, right? They want to knock off the number 3 or 4 team in the country. So they're going to come guns blazing, and Tennessee can't be looking down the road 2 weeks to Georgia, or they're going to it could get handed to them. And then the whole world's upside down. But that's what we love about college sports and Saturdays, because, you just never know what you're going to get when you got a bunch of players out there that are talented enough, if they're clicking, can beat anybody on any given Saturday. So that's why we watch, right?
Yeah, it is. And, and Tommy, this is my take. I think we're starting to see some effects of all this NIL money. I think it's blowing up some locker rooms with dissension or whatever.
Sure.
Again, that's something we saw coming. And that's why I believe the free market will fix it, because the fans will let you know when they're leaving or not even showing up. They can tell when a team is fractured. How do you fix that at this point in the season, though?
That's a great question. I mean, I really thought perfect example right here in Atlanta, Georgia Tech. I thought Georgia Tech had fixed it after the debacle that they had started at the beginning of the year, and then they go and completely lay an egg in what might be the worst college football game of the whole year on Thursday night when they lose to Virginia.
Yeah.
Here in Atlanta, 16-9. I mean, it was. I didn't watch a minute of it. I'll be honest with you. I just was like, I thought that matchup would be terrible, and I didn't want to watch any of it. And I started looking at the highlights and reading the stats afterwards. And everybody in the sports talk radio here in Atlanta was just like, "Come on, that was the worst game of college football of the year." And so I don't know. Like, I thought Georgia Tech had righted the ship after all that craziness, and they didn't. But I think to answer your question is, it's got to come from above. It's got to come from the leadership of the school. It's got to come from the coaching staff to believe in it. It's got to have that unity, and that brotherhood kind of feel in the locker room. And it's tougher and tougher these days because you're sitting next to a guy that is, playing a few more minutes for you and made a big play or something. He's got money in his pocket because he's got an NIL deal, and you're pissed that you're not getting the playing time because the coach won't let you play because you're thinking, well, if I can play, I get an NIL deal too. And all of a sudden I got money in my pocket. So look, coaching is not an easy job, and is not an easy way to make a living. That's for sure. I mean, you make a ton of money, but my gosh, man, like when I was thinking about going into college coaching for basketball after leaving NC State, I remember meeting with the coaches at NC State at the time. Les Robinson said, "Tommy, look," he said, "there's no other jobs in the country other than the president of the United States and coaches that you wake up the next day and you pick up the paper or read the internet about how bad everybody has an opinion about how you did your job." Like, he was, you think about it, Jimmy, you got, and all you guys and Rob, you financial advisors. So you're like, hey, but you don't have to read the paper every morning. It's not all over the internet every day about that you blew it and didn't buy stock when everything was so low. And now it's all screaming back up to an all-time high. So coaching is they get paid a lot of money, but man, that is a stressful, every single day in your face kind of job. So I'm glad I'm not coaching.
And I heard Shane Beamer making a comment recently about, we can talk to these kids on the team and they may be listening to us and nodding their head, yeah. But are we getting through to them? That's right. What we don't know. And I think my dad always says, when it comes to, he's an architect, with art in a house, less is more. Don't have paintings on top of paintings, because then nothing stands out. Well, less is more when you're talking to your team, isn't it?
It is. I think it is. I mean, again, the attention span of the generation today and the kids that are in your locker room every day, and they're influenced by so many things outside of the locker room, right? I mean, they're influenced by their family and their buddies from high school and all their buddies in college. Are like, man, you should be playing more. You should be getting this. Go there, play this, do whatever. There's a lot of influence. And then you throw on top of that the social media generation of what we're dealing with all the influence there, and the followers, and who's got the most followers, and all that kind of stuff, and being influenced by, man, you should trade, you should transfer, go here, whatever. There's a lot of exterior stuff going on, and that's tough for coaches.
Yeah, hold those thoughts, because that's you just nailed it. Exactly that. You've got distractions coming at you in your sleep. We're going to talk more about it right after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back with Jimmy Hodge in Knoxville, Tommy Kane over in Atlanta talking some ACC football, and we'll be getting into basketball here soon. It's already overlapping. I mean, practice is underway. Games are going to be starting here pretty soon, and there is a lot to talk about. And I tell you what, Tommy, you're right. My son Max, my youngest one, when he was in 10th grade, wrote a term paper about social media, cell phones are destroying our culture and tearing families apart, and that people you would never allow your kids to hang out with enter your home freely 24/7 through that handheld phone and social media. And those student athletes are no different. That's who they are. So I like what you just said. Jimmy, jump back in here.
Well, it's a different time for sure, but at the end of the day, though, when they start the game, that's where you put all that stuff aside and you just try to accomplish your mission. And Tommy, I wanted to tell you in that Georgia Tech Virginia game, I really felt bad for Brent Key because early, I guess, second quarter, they lose Sims, their quarterback. And we all know that quarterback is the most critical position in college football. And certainly in Tech's situation, when he went out of the game, that was it. I mean, they just had no offense. And it was just, it was just tough sledding for them. But I got to say, Brent Key's really done a remarkable job re-energizing that program on a moment's notice. They're playing with different energy, and you can tell they're responding to him. And I think he really deserves a lot of credit because that thing would have really gotten ugly because the players obviously weren't responding to Collins. And do you have any idea on who some legitimate candidates would be for that Georgia Tech opening?
I got to be honest with you, Jimmy, I haven't heard much about it. I think when they started getting from what I kind of heard is that they just wanted to try to right the ship as much as they could this season and kind of get moving forward with that. And like you said, the coach came in and did a nice job and has done a nice job. And we'll see how it goes the next couple of weeks with those guys. But I have not heard the short list or if there is one. I just keep hearing the rumors. Of course, Deion Sanders' name still keeps rolling around because everybody's excited about the potential there. And I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that interview on 60 Minutes, though. If you have not, I highly recommend you Google. It's on YouTube, the Deion Sanders 60-minute interview. Fantastic. I mean, the guy is just he's a winner. He's just a winner. Yeah. He gets people motivated. He has the right mindset about things. And he's really good for those young men as far as their work ethic and teaching them the right things and how to really get the most out of the kids. So, and then he said at the end of his interview, Deion says, ask him, they say, hey, would you entertain a big time offer from bigger schools? He was like, of course I would. Of course I would. So, I mean, like, if you want to throw if you want to throw a spark in the fire, I mean, in a bunch of kindling and try to get it going, I mean, Deion Sanders back in Atlanta, I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I'm not, those guys, the ADs and the staff over there at Georgia Tech will figure all that out and whatever. But, I mean, come on. Back in Atlanta, his old stomping grounds, there would be a huge energy around Georgia Tech, and I think the recruits would just start pouring in. I mean, and if he could transfer, his son plays quarterback for them down there, and he's a good quarterback. He plays well. He puts up some pretty nice numbers. And I mean, what if he transfers in and all of a sudden you got this? You never know. So we'll see what happens.
Well, it's interesting to me. People go back. They remember him in college when he was younger and he was obnoxious, and run-ins he had on TV with Tim McCarver and whatever. Well, he's older now.
Tim McCarver was obnoxious too, though. Let's put it out.
They were all being exactly. So, my God, if somebody put a camera on you or Jimmy or me or Audrey when we were 21 and 22, some of the stuff we did, my God, I'm what I hear him say on these constantly putting out stuff on social media about hard work and do you love it? Are you willing to do what it takes to be great? Everybody wants to be great. How many of them have a plan to get there? He says the right things, and you're not seeing his players getting in trouble down at Jackson State. ESPN Game Day's coming there this week. He has energized that alumni base of Jackson State University like nothing in school history. Not even the halftime band performances get the people that revved up. That's
right.
powerful stuff.
And you credit to him. I mean, I agree with you. And, Rob, look, Deion Sanders was a freak athlete. There's no question about it. But
Yes.
he didn't rest on his laurels of like, oh, I'm a freak athlete. He had a work ethic too. He made himself prime time. He made himself one of the best ever. Like that comes from within. There are a lot of kids out there that have just as much athletic ability as Deion Sanders had, if not maybe more. They just don't have the work ethic. And that's just the combination of what it takes to be great. You have to have the right mindset. You have to have the right work ethic. And of course, you got to have a lot of luck and being healthy and whatever and go through everything. But Deion was just, I mean, when you talk about football, and he was a good baseball player, man. He played well for the Braves. He was, I mean, I still remember hearing the whole story about him jumping on the helicopter, going from one game to the next to play 2 sports in the same day, professional sports. I mean, come on, man. That's awesome. But I just think that he would be, I can't wait to see the game day. I didn't realize that game day was going to be down there this weekend. I can't wait to see that. But I mean, hats off to him and what he's done down there and got that. Then they're just blowing people out. They're scoring in bunches. And I mean, if I'm Georgia Tech and I'm like, why not take a chance? Let's put the defibrillator machine on the program and let's get it going again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't see why it would be a too big of a gamble. Somebody is going to hire Deion Sanders, and you look at him on the Aflac commercials. Aflac's headquarters is in Columbus. It's up on Macon Road. I mean, I used to work in Columbus for Channel 3. It's a massive headquarters, but it's right there, 35 minutes from Auburn. And Coach Prime, Coach Saban do those commercials. He's a marketing genius. He was the original NIL guy in 1988. I mean, and you talk about a work ethic to be great. And what bothers me though is how many Florida State people speak disparagingly of him. People that I respect, and I'm going to get into that with some of them this week. I hope he's changed, but he's influencing a lot of people's lives, Tommy. And you're exactly right. And there's something to be said about that. There's a lot to be said about that because you need it. And again, I'm not, believe me, if he was not like what we're seeing on the 60 Minutes interview or in social media, you couldn't hide that. I mean, again, people have their opinions, but you know what I've learned? You get mad at somebody, get mad right then and move on. Don't let
here's the other thing, Rob, too. Like when he was in his heyday at Florida State and then with the Falcons and everything, I mean, yeah, he was all about himself. He was all about the show and hanging out with MC Hammer on the sidelines and doing all that stuff. And of course, half the people hated him because he was an arrogant, jerk. But he proved it on
more than half.
Right. But my point is that was then. You have to look at the body of work he's doing now and what he's doing now to influence young men and to turn the corner stuff. He doesn't need the money to be. They're only paying him $500,000. I say only. That's a lot of money, especially for an HBCU. But he doesn't need the money. He's still doing the NFL shows and all that stuff. And he's got the money. He's doing it because he loves the game and he's influencing young men to become better men and young boys to become better men. Yeah. And you got to give him credit. And I love his passion. I would, if I had a son and he could go play for him, I'd say, yes, go play for Deion Sanders. You're going to be a better man when you leave that program. So I'm with you. Georgia Tech, why not take a chance and stick him in there? It's a perfect scenario back in Atlanta. He would flourish, I think. And I think that would be you'd have some exciting football being played down the flats.
He get a lot of kids to visit. That's what it boils down to. Tommy, look, thanks so much for joining us. Tell people how they can follow you. You've got a great production company. They need to know about it. And we look forward to having you on every time because you've got great insight and you're passionate and you've got honest opinions. And I agree with you too. So it makes it even better.
So we got that going for us, Rob. My production company is Pack 30 Productions, PACK 30 Productions. That's my number I had when I walked on at NC State for the Wolfpack. And then people can follow me on Instagram at Tommy Kane _talent. And it's Kane, the last name. But thanks for having me on, guys. Always a pleasure to talk football with you. And like you said, man, the hardwood's getting ready to start heating up here in a little bit. So I get even my juices going a little more there.
Oh, man, listen, that's when it's another level right there. So thank you so much. Have a great one.
All right, guys. Take care now.
You too. All right, let's switch gears, head down to the swamp in Gainesville, Florida. The purple porpoise is no longer there, but they won't back down. The Gators got the world's largest outdoor cocktail party coming up Saturday in Jacksonville, Florida, and Georgia. These two schools absolutely love one another. They love to hate one another. That's what's fun about these rivalries. A lot of great traditions in this one. And you think about, I think if I'm not mistaken, Franz Beard of GatorBaitMedia.com fame and fortune, the Iron Duke, from Steve Spurrier was 11-1 against Georgia when he was head coach at Florida. Even the Zucker won some games. And then Urban Meyer, wasn't Florida 18-3 in that 12-3-6, that 21-year period, 18-3 against Georgia?
Yeah, exactly. 18-3. And let's just say we have fallen on hard times in Gainesville when it comes to playing the Poodles. And I wrote today, we need some Jacksonville weirdness. I have been through a bunch of it myself, such as, Henry Davis stepping into a mud puddle. They run a tight end around Richard Appleby to Gene Washington, and Henry Davis, who didn't give up a touchdown pass before or after, steps in a mud puddle and falls down, and Gene Washington catches the passes. They beat Florida 10-7. Run, Lindsey, run. But I was also there when Antone Lott called timeout, 1993. 2014, when Florida is 11.5, 12-point underdog to a Georgia team that won 10 ball games that year. And 2 weeks before he got fired, Will Muschamp comes out there, and Florida runs the ball 60 times for 418 yards. Kelvin Taylor, 197 yards. Matt Jones, 192. And freshman quarterback Treon Harris threw 6 passes, and Florida wins that ball game 38-20. So I have been through the weirdness, and I know that this is a time when every Gator in the world who has any sense at all is hoping and praying that Jacksonville weirdness comes into play Saturday, because things are looking grim, guys.
All right, let me ask you this. I like Billy Napier as the long-term successful coach at Florida, but a guy like him is not going to come in and look for the shock and awe in the first season. He seems like a methodical, like a mechanical engineer type. He's building a plan, a lot of analytical planning involved. He's not trying to succeed and win every game, win 10 games his first year, and then where do you go from there? Is that a fair take on Billy Napier's first year? Because he ain't going to win 10. He might just win 6 or 7 if he's, but I like him as a long term. But a lot of Gator fans are frustrated. That's just the world we live in when you're surrounded. But look what's going on at Miami. And now Florida State's lost 3 in a row. Well,
This is a transition time. And, we talked last week. If you just do the math, he's got 4 seniors, 85 on scholarship, 4 seniors. That's 81. He's got 21 committed. He's planning to sign 28. That's right there, makes 109. That means people are going to, that he's going to have to do a purge. And then, of course, you're going to bring in transfers after that. But this is very similar, although he didn't have the portal to work with. It's not dissimilar to what he did at Louisiana. His first year at Louisiana, my gosh, they were. Let me find something here. I'll give you some numbers. This is mind-boggling here. 3 weeks into October of 2018, the Raging Cajuns were 3-3. They'd scored 209 points, given up 224, and they were about to get clocked by Appalachian State up there at Appalachian State. They did. They were, at that point in time, opponents were 40 for 77 on third down. Does that sound familiar? They couldn't get anybody off the field, but yet what happens? They come through and they end up being 7-7. They get to the Sun Belt Championship game where they got clocked by Appalachian State, but everybody did that year. And then they lost to Tulane in a bowl game. But they were 7-5 in the regular season, and everybody gave them up for dead when they were 3-3 at midseason. So the next year, though, they went from being bad to 11-3, scoring 37.9 a game, giving up 19.7. The year before, they gave up 32 a game. So, and their defense improved to be 47th nationally from 97th. The similarities are there. And all you can say is that, okay, if you look at this, the only thing that's the same about it is the fact that he did a purge there at Louisiana to get in his guys. He's going to have to do it here because you inherit guys that aren't right for the system or whatever like that. And if you look at what Dan Mullen did recruiting wise, well, let's just say Dan left the cupboard bare. And the perfect example of what Dan Mullen did is in Dameon Pierce in the NFL. Dameon Pierce now has 504 yards through 6 NFL games. 2 years ago, he had 506. Last year, he had 574, but he only had 1,800 yards for his career. If he continues on the current pace, he's probably going to get 1,800 in his rookie year in the NFL. Now, tell me what was wrong with what Dan Mullen was doing. And if you look at, and that should also tell you what's wrong with the team that Billy Napier inherited.
Well, yeah, it's obvious. Every coach, you're basically going to just hang yourself if you come in and say, when I get my guys in here, we're going to have a lot of success. You got to say, these are my guys. That's what you got to say. And you got to work with what you've got, but you better get out and recruit. I'm looking at what Florida's doing in recruiting. They're addressing the needs, but when you look at the final analysis and make it final analysis of a recruiting class, you better address what you need versus just going after star power. That's where schools get in trouble. Style points, the star. That's the difference. So we'll talk about this and more after this quick commercial break on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Jimmy Hodge, breaking that down, talking about what Billy Napier did at Louisiana, what he's doing in his first year at Florida, and the mess he inherited. Captain Obvious moment here. The previous coach and staff would not have been fired if everything was good about the program. And that's what fans fail to remember in the first year is look what he's having to work with. Elaborate on that, Jimmy.
Well, I think the beginning of the end for Mullen was, or at least what capped it was after that loss to Georgia in the cocktail party, in which they asked him about in his post-game news conference, what do you have to say about your talent level? I mean, it's pretty obvious there's a big difference. And Mullen responded by saying, well, I'm not worried about that right now. Whereas the year before, I think after they'd beaten Georgia, he said, "Yeah, we're on it every day, you know." And we all know with SEC programs, recruiting is a 365 day a year um, process. I mean, you got to have, if you're not contacting players, somebody on your staff is, or preferably everybody on your staff is. They have a list of certain targets, and they talk to somebody associated with them, whether it's their high school coach, where it's a close relative, a close family friend, or the parents, or the player himself. And that really, I think, ended it for Mullen. Whereas, you know, Napier comes in and he knows what his job is. He said on day one, we need players. Well, not only do we need players, we need lots of them. In other words, we need backups that are going to be, if they're not as good as the starters, there's not going to be a significant drop off if those guys have to go into the game, depending on what position it is. So Napier realized what he's dealing with in year one, and they're trying to take advantage of every single practice to get every single player better. And if you're not a starter, in case you have to go in, you're not unprepared. You're ready to go in there and give it, your best effort, so there's not a big drop off in performance.
Yeah, I agree with that. Friends, Georgia, Florida week. Right now you got a lot of people in the SEC that are saying, let's put Kirby and Nick on the TV set at the SEC championship game as analysts, not coaches. Florida, Tennessee look to be the biggest threats left on Georgia's schedule. For Alabama, it's LSU. So I think is the only real threat to Alabama. What do you think is going to happen Saturday? You think obviously you're a Gator fan. Anyone that goes to a game thinking their team is going to lose should not go.
Well, here's the thing. I think that, every game, if you show up, the game's winnable. Okay.
Yeah, right.
The question is, can you do the things that it takes to win? And you'd have to question whether Florida can do the things it takes to win, judging on what we have seen so far. But as I alluded to earlier, there is such a thing as Jacksonville weirdness, and it happens. I'll give you another good example. 1997, Florida shows up there, and Georgia just absolutely kills Florida. I think Spurrier was just absolutely shocked at what happened with that team. And yet what happens 3 weeks later is Florida ambushes Florida State, which only needs to beat Florida to play in the national championship game. And Florida ambushes them at the Swamp, 32-29. So weirdness happens in that particular game. You never know what's going to happen. Now, what I got to say is this. Will Muschamp has put together such a good defense. They rush 4 guys. They drop 7. That's why they're so good. They only have 7 sacks all year. They only have 9 takeaways all year. And yet they're the number 2 defense in the country, number 2 in scoring, number 2 in total defense. And they just play everybody straight up. So it's hard when you got a team like that can stop the run without blitzing, can stop the pass without blitzing, can stop the run without run blitzes and play it straight. It's hard to find a weakness. So the question is going to be, during the off week, because as you know, both you guys know, during a week you have game prep. When you have an off week, that is when something happens. Okay, you can make changes. You can do something that creates some weirdness, as I like to call it, and that's what it's going to take. Did he get some weirdness installed this past week? Because what we've seen of Georgia so far this year is their defense is so sound that you're not going to be able to beat them just with a straight game plan. You're going to have to have some wrinkle in there. The only team that can beat them with a straight game plan is Tennessee. And that is because Tennessee runs so fast at you that you really don't have time to make an adjustment. You can't even make an adjustment on the sideline calling in your next defense because they know what they're going to do and you have no clue what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So they've got a chance to doing it the same way. For a team like Florida, which doesn't have that blur offense, Florida's got to come in there with some sort of weirdness that they came up with during the off week. Can they do it? I don't know. But I do know this. I've seen enough weirdness. I've seen enough strange stuff go on in Jacksonville to believe that it can happen.
So you're talking about Jacksonville, the hometown of 38 Special, Leonard Skinnard, their PE coach, Leonard Skinnard.
I knew him.
You did? You knew Leonard Skinnard?
Yeah, Leonard Skinner was the basketball coach at Lee High School. They lost in the regional finals to Rains, and Rains played GHS in the state semifinals, and we beat them, of course. We won the state championship. But Leonard was the basketball coach there, and he called Ronnie Van Zant a hippie scum. And they ended up being really good friends. Leonard owned a bar named The Still, and that's where the band Leonard Skinnard actually started playing is at The Still. Yeah, I knew Leonard. Leonard played basketball at JU, believe it or not. Went to FSU and then came back home and played basketball at JU.
All right, next question. This is for Leonard Skinnard. The band Leonard Skinner was the PE coach. Next question. You were your teammate was Tommy Petty. My wife Audrey over here, for those of you that are challenged, that's Tom Petty, the famous rock and roller. Was Tom Petty ever in a game, basketball game or football game where Leonard Skinner was the coach? That sounds like I would love to see a picture of that. On the floor, Ronnie Van Zant and Tommy Petty?
When he was in the 9th grade and he was still about 100 pounds, which is what we were when we were in the 7th grade, Tommy decided that his future might be elsewhere besides football. Everybody else was growing big. Everybody else was growing up and whatever like that. And he wasn't. So
you're like 6'3", aren't you?
I'm 6'1.5".
Okay. I mean, that's the coolest story. I've never knew the name of the bar where I knew they practiced in the Hell House with no windows, no AC. They played at the Still. So that's part of the Jacksonville culture. You think they ever did a performance the weekend of the Florida-Georgia game?
That part I don't know, but I know this, that truly one of the great rock and roll bands of all time. Jack, the music scene in both Gainesville and Jacksonville. I mean, the Allman Brothers were the house band at the ATO house. So back when they were the Allman Joys, they were supposedly out of Daytona Beach, but they lived in Gainesville. Basically, they were the house band at the ATO house where Spurrier and Steve Melnick and people like that were brothers. And they during the week they supplemented their band income by teaching music over at Lipham Music Company. Stephen Stills, Gainesville High Boy, Don Felder, Bernie Ledden, two guys that were in the original Eagles, Gainesville High guys that were in a band with Stephen Stills. Then Stephen got famous and left, and then Bernie Ledden ends up going out to California and becomes Linda Ronstadt's house band, and then he and Don Felder are with the Eagles. Gainesville's got a great music scene. I mean, we've had some pretty good music people, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you think about Alachua County. That is absolutely incredible. Well, anyway, this world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I love the rivalry. I love it when Tony Barnhart's on here. This is what I love about Tony, is that he's a great true grit journalist like you are, like Buddy, but he also loves to go to the games with his fraternity brothers from college. It's still special, and it gets more and more special with every passing year. I absolutely love this. Jimmy, jump back in this conversation with Franz Beard, Check him out Monday through Thursday nights. He's on a lot on the Buddy Martin Show. Check it out on Facebook and Twitter, and also GatorBaitMedia.com. Puts out some of the absolute best content you will read anywhere. Remember, reading someone like Franz Beard, Buddy Martin, is the equivalent of swimming a couple of miles in the pool, running, or lifting weights with your brain. It's good. Jimmy?
Yeah, those are a couple of great music stories, and of course, you got a pretty good rivalry with the Dogs as far as the Athens music scene, and then you got the 6th Street music scene in Austin, and man, that's quite a trio. Maybe they could maybe have an annual festival with those 3 parties combined, or at least the remnants of it, who got their start with all those legendary musicians. But yeah, you could go a few hours just talking about some of those music stories for sure. But and I think, Franz, you did not mention the 2012 cocktail party where Florida's only loss, it looked like they were going to score a certain touchdown, and then they fumbled maybe at the 1-yard line, and Georgia recovered it in the end zone, and that was Florida's only loss, or they would have been in that SEC championship game against Alabama.
Florida was down 17-9 and driving, and they throw a little pass to Jordan Reed, and he's at about the 5, and he's trying to stretch out because it becomes he has the first down, and he should have just tried to protect the ball, but he didn't. He tried to stretch for a couple extra yards, got it poked away, fumbled. Georgia recovers and holds on, wins the game 17-9. And you're right about that. 2007, Georgia storms the field. Mark Richt, I swear, Mark Richt at SEC Media Days, his nose grew this long because he sat there and up there in front of everybody and says, "My guys go running on the field." And I looked at my assistant coach and I said, "What are they doing?" Oh, come on, Mark. You claim, live your faith and show it and say, yeah, we planned that thing all week long. And we told our guys, if, don't do anything, you can provoke the other guys and let them start the fight, but don't you dare do it. Georgia gets a 15-yard penalty, and I guarantee you that ball game right there, we had the makings of a major brawl because Georgia's sitting there, they're running their mouths. I've talked to guys, and I can tell you some of the things they said, which let's say you wouldn't say in church. Yeah. And the next year, Urban Meyer put a Georgia Bulldog head in the urinal. And every single day, at the football complex, every time somebody peed, they peed on a Georgia head. Every single day. They ran the loop of them running on the field. That showed every 10 minutes for a year. That showed a loop that showing them. No, Urban didn't get mad, but he sure as hell got even. And if you remember, there were 3 timeouts called there at the end in the last minute. And here was the significance of that. Every time he calls timeout, the cameras show Mark Richt looking up at the scoreboard, and it shows Florida 49, Georgia 10. And Urban should have, but he didn't. He should have run the score up on them, because that day he had them so beaten down. If he had wanted to score 80 on them, he could have. And that was the game also that, the next year, that was 2008. That was when No Sean Marino became No Show Marino, because on the second play of the game, he met Mr. Spikes, and Mr. Spikes proceeded to put one on him that Ajax couldn't take off. Yeah. That was, I remember that. I remember that very well. That was also the game when Georgia finally scored a touchdown. There at the end, Chris Rainey holds the ball and kind of goes like this, and everybody's kind of running. He stepped there with the kickoff, and then all of a sudden he runs, and he went 40-something yards with it. That I remember, though. No, I have a short memory, as you know.
Yeah. No, you got a great memory. I tell you, Michael Jordan, MJ just texted just now about your comments about Skinner. You got that right. One of the great. Oh, that was great. Ronnie Van Zant. By the way, Franz, only you might know this, but where could a man like Michael Jordan buy one of those hats that Ronnie Van Zant wore with the snakeskin band around it? Do you know a place where such a hat could be purchased?
They have a Western wear store in Ocala. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but it's just right off. It's the second Ocala exit. You take a left off 575. You take a left like you're going into town, and it is on the right side. They have boots and Ocala's horse country, so they got boot shops and hats, and they got it by the. If there's any place in Florida that would have it, that place would have it.
Because that looks like an Eastern Diamondback rattlesnake skin. So there's plenty.
We
of
got
those
a couple of those in this state.
Yeah, exactly. Franz Beard, this has been.
By the way, so let me throw in one thing. You're talking about music.
Yeah,
you're talking about music. Jimmy Buffett went to Auburn
briefly
before he flunked out and went to Southern Miss.
That's right. Hey, listen, I'm going to say thank you, Franz. Awesome on here, Jimmy. All of our guests, everybody. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and help somebody with the expectation to get nothing in return. And have a great day, everybody. We live in the greatest country in the world. See you tomorrow.